All right, good afternoon, gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everybody to the first of what I do intend to be mini community meetings for the Quantum Resistance Corporation. QRC is a grant-funded initiative by the QRL, the Quantum Resistant Ledger, that is designed to help tackle some of the more complex problems around the ecosystem, build and provide services for the participants in our ecosystem, and otherwise help to accelerate the growth, adoption, and general knowledge of the quantum resistant ledger, and to its extent applicable, the whole problem of quantum resistance and quantum resistant technology to begin with. On the call today, we have a number of community members, many of whom you will all recognize from Discord, and very kindly, Peter, the current head of the Quantum Resistant Ledger, has joined us. I wanted to ask him to join us today because I did want to extend a big thank you to him for helping enable these community initiatives, and not just mine. Peter has also enabled the building of some new tools from VoltMine. We just put out a great paper. His team just put out a great paper on the new signature type that Geometry Labs is exploring. And really, I think this dedication to community and inspiring building and growth around the quantum resistant ledger is going to be an important part of making us more than just another blockchain, more than just another platform project, more than just hot air that is all too prevalent and common in these spaces. The other thing I wanted to do, which is unplanned, but the way things lined up, it's a good time to announce it as any. We did have a little bit of a notice from our legal team prior to this meeting, which is that they are finalizing their draft opinion on the legal status of QRL, and have found, after fully evaluating the Bitcoin Talk thread where it was originally announced, all of the publications and documentation on the website, everything on GitHub, GitLab, anything that we could access there that was in the public eye, that QRL is in fact not a security and should not be governed as such. It meets all of the current criteria to be a quote unquote cryptocurrency, which is still a little bit of an open thing. So I thought I'd start this off with some good news. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about legal and all of these other kind of issues towards the end of the call. But for now, I'd like to get into the teams that have joined us here, starting with our brand and advertising team made up of Nate and Catherine. Nate and Catherine?
Hey there. Should we get started, Mike?
Yep, go for it.
Right. So my name's Nate Balfour. I've been doing graphic design, art direction for over 12 years. I worked with Catherine actually at an agency here in Denver, Colorado. For around 6 years, we did everything from campaign development. Well, on my end, I would work with campaign development, key visuals, art direction, versioning, production, outdoor, which includes billboards, production, digital media, which would be display ads, web ads, anything from print production, and then social media and influencer marketing. Catherine and I, our book of clients range from foundations to nonprofits to corporations, national and local, local health departments, things like that. Some of my hard skills are branding, graphic design, obviously, some illustration, some video production, video editing, and animation. So I'm kind of in that art director vein. I've kind of had my hands in everything, and worked with a lot of different teams, collaborated with a lot of different people, worked with a lot of different clients with a lot of different difficult messaging to approach, and kind of had that whole wide range of things. And, I'm on more of the art side, the key visual side. And then my colleague, Catherine here, is a lot more on that strategy and the writing side of things. So her and I kind of have always made a good team, and we've worked outside of the agency together as well.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Like Nate said, I'm Catherine Brenton, and excuse me, it's a real privilege to be working on this project. Like Nate said, we've worked together for several years, and I have been in the communications and marketing strategy space for a long time. I began my career in journalism and print journalism, did various stints in journalism, and then moved into agency communications and have been kind of in that strategic communications marketing space ever since. have worked on a broad range of issues for nonprofits, NGOs, foundations, public agencies, and private companies. A lot of the projects, the projects are very different, but typically, all of them include, a component where sort of public awareness or public education is a key piece. So go-to-market campaigns, major announcements, change management, behavior change, crisis comms, education and awareness. So this project kind of pulls in pieces of several of those things: go-to-market, change management in a way, and certainly education and awareness. As Nate mentioned, my sweet spot is sort of on the planning, strategy, messaging, media side of things. And Nate and I make a great team because he's such a fantastic artist and visual person, creative. I'm definitely new to the crypto space. I'm coming up to speed. I appreciate all of your patience with me, but it's certainly been a fascinating introduction, and I'm already a huge admirer of what y'all are doing here.
So what we're doing right now at this point, we started in around the beginning of March, and we kind of just been going full speed as much as possible ever since. So at the moment, we are gathering insights from you, the community, to help us develop a solid core of communications and marketing assets. So some of you we've interviewed one-on-one. We are also developing a survey. I think we actually will talk about that here. We're interviewing members individually. We're gathering detailed responses via a marketing questionnaire. I've been posing questions in the community, and some of you have been responding, as far as what type of content you'd like to see us kind of pitching to our partner journalists. Again, community-wide survey. As far as the brand development of QRC, we've been lightning fast with this. You can see the QRC branding around here on this presentation, but, we're trying to be really fast about it so that we can keep our focus on, QRL's goals, because we're kind of just, we exist for those goals. So our branding, it's advantageous to just move quick with that. And we already have a Twitter and LinkedIn, and we've, shared some press releases on there. Catherine, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. And when I talk about, our goal for the work that Nate and I are doing around marketing and communications, and this is what we might call kind of the research and discovery. I firmly believe that, the best ideas and opportunities and have already been surfaced within the community and are known to the people who know this work and this technology best. So this process that we're going through now is really designed to kind of do as much of a knowledge transfer as we can when it comes to, ideas for, the audiences we should be targeting, the messages we should be using, tactics, strategies, and, areas of focus. So it really is a matter of kind of mining the expertise that is already, present within the community and taking those insights and then sort of forming them into these marketing assets that will help us. And we're certainly building the plane while we're flying it. I think, in an ideal world, you sort of do the discovery, you write the messages, you develop the brand, you implement all that stuff. We're kind of doing it all at the same time and moving quickly on it. But that is the purpose of these conversations and the forthcoming survey, and is really just to glean the insights that you all already certainly have.
Yeah. It's certainly been a crash course for Catherine and I coming up to speed. I've been invested in QRL, but that's a lot of because of Mike explaining it to me. So it's been an interesting exercise, having these two laymen's, I guess you could say, coming up to speed, and then finding out what was the quickest way for us to learn about what, QRL is and does, and, why it's secure in the future, its relationship with other cryptocurrencies. And it's been an interesting exercise in seeing how can we eventually teach others quickly through advertising and marketing to get up to speed as well. So overall, our goal is to develop tools to promote QRL's unique value and uses and implement those tools strategically to grow the QRL community. Overall, that's our goal. So some of our near-term deliverables, brand identity for QRC, which we have logo, font, style, colors. Obviously, it's going to stick to similar to QRL since we're, I guess you could say a cousin brand to QRL. And also we want to streamline that process because it's not necessarily about QRC, but it's necessary to establish something solid there. Core messages towards our goals for QRL, which are in progress. And a lot of that comes from our research and the community outreach. And you guys have been amazing in bringing us up to speed and giving us all of your insight, which is all being compiled, and we're producing core messaging now. The website's in progress. We have that landing page that again leads right to QRL, but the design is in process, and we're pretty close there. Audience personas, and I'll let Catherine go into detail on some of this too. Our communications plan, content strategy, and implementation. Earned media, press releases, pitches to journalists. We already have 2 out that have been pretty successful. Again, I'll let Catherine and maybe Mike talk about that. And then paid placements. We're working on some more permanent hosted content. So this is just the near future deliverables. Obviously, all of this would eventually inform, full-fledged advertising campaigns, efforts. We would use these core messaging documents and materials that we've come up with, this communications plan, content strategy. All of this would inform us coming up with larger campaigns towards different audiences, again, using these audience personas. So we're sort of, identifying what are our target audiences, what's most worthwhile, what's the most ideal and effective use of our funds in advertising. So coming up with these audience personas and just being very targeted and thoughtful when we're coming up with these campaigns eventually. And that's where we would create some more fun creative to go along with that. Something else that's on this, that's not on this list is the ambassador box that we're coming up with, just something for the community to purchase and, receive some really cool QRL swag. And then also sort of some elevator pitches, if you will, on, some of our insights on how to pitch this and to your friends or people that and so we can just start getting more enthusiasm around talking about QRL individually and at a local level as well. Catherine, do you want to talk about the communications plan and such?
Sure, I can just quickly kind of so audience personas are just useful to kind of keep us on track for the groups of people, the types of people that are most likely to be interested in our messages. So defining your audiences very clearly just helps from that process, kind of becomes clear what types of messages and sort of channels and messengers you should be using to reach those folks. So that's it's nothing that ever sort of goes public, but it's a very useful sort of internal planning and strategy piece. The comms plan is generally, that big strategy document that would sort of look at communications across, broadly. So, our owned media, the channels that we own or fully control, our website, if we had an email list, social media, of course, earned media, so pitching, press releases, et cetera, and then paid media. So the communications plan would look at kind of all 4 of those areas, as well as potentially outreach or, conferences, presence at different sort of community events. So potentially all 5 of those areas, and kind of bring, the insights from discovery, the audience personas, and sort of all of this together into a strategic document that would guide the next, 6, 12, 18 months of work.
All right, well, that's all that we have. Mike, are we just going to save some questions for?
Yep, I figure we'll do the Q&A segment at the end. Thank you guys for going through that. And yeah, it is a long process to get all this done. Really, as we look to the future of how we can utilize this information, it is amazing how well it's already kind of helping us to see where we're getting traffic and traction, and which messages are responding to us. It's anyone can go throw darts at a wall as far as ads are concerned and try to hope they hit a lucky one and get that right audience engagement. People who, in the case of QRL, it's a pretty fine line. People who are knowledgeable enough about crypto to know that there's a big problem in crypto and are still capable of engaging with the systems we have to actually participate in the network. At any rate, quite the process. The second piece of offering that we really wanted to focus on bringing in to the QRL community, as well as core network and everything that makes up the network of systems that we operate on here, is what we're calling the Community Security Initiative, which is from a company that has endorsed and partnered with us for this process called RedSense. RedSense was a company that was originally founded by a group of about 5 people, one of which is myself. I am a co-founder of it. And our goal is to take external only visibility and turn that into security for mostly large companies, insurance companies, other mega cap data consumers. And as part of that, it gave us a really unique place to try and do something that has never really been done in this blockchain ecosystem before, which is tackle risk really head on. If you look at a lot of what's happened for security in blockchain ecosystems, there's honestly not a lot of the actual network getting hacked. It's the people who build the network. It's the people who operate the network. It's the humans who are involved in generating new content, new ideas, building infrastructure around that network that fall prey to pretty much traditional security vulnerabilities. And that results in very bad things happening. So when we came in, we asked for some volunteer participation. VoltMine is one of the groups that participated with us, who's on. Toxi is also working with us, is not on today. And I wanted to then hand the floor over to Kevin, who is the chief of ops at RedSense, who has been working on analyzing the net flow and metrics of this network to kind of discuss how we're doing it, what we've seen so far, and what the real state of tangible security is for the traditional verticals inside this network. Mr. Kevin.
Thanks, Mike. All right, nice slides. I got these. Hi, I'm Kevin Steer, co-founder of RedSense, principal researcher sort of in role. We flashed past Brian Gardner. You can back up and we'll give his slide up there too.
I love doing it live. Yeah, let's do Brian. Get out, Brian.
Brian's my co-lead here of operations at RedSense, and our team actively supports a number of customers in a approach that Mike described, that I like to think of as multidisciplinary, diverse intelligence source and access sort of centric, right? Brian and I both come from a government background, Brian from US CERT, myself from the NSA, where I think data and intelligence diversity are really some of the key differentiators in value when you're prosecuting a target, right? We protect national security with a multidisciplinary inter-access approach, right? That combines humans, it combines SIGINT, it combines telemetry, it combines all these different pitches. If you sort of fall back on a baseball analogy like me, sorry, it's early and I still have hope that the Rockies might actually make 500 this year. We'll see.
Dream on.
Yeah, right. We'll see. So the idea is, at RedSense, I think we apply a multi-discipline and a diverse set of intelligence sources and accesses to support our customers. And why that's so apropos today, and especially in the context of today's conversation, is number one, cryptocurrency is heavily targeted already, as you guys are aware. But the bleeding edge of quantum compute and post-quantum compute is even more incentivized via coins like QRL effectively moving forward. So the adversary space, there are no slouches here, right? Where there's financial incentive to be had and weak network space to be abused. I think, forgive me there, my dad's blowing me up. I don't know how to turn that off on my MacBook. So where there's that space to be abused, I think that there's a attack surface to be protected. And I really appreciate the opportunity. I know the team does also to come in Q1 and had a chance to look at some of the ancillary network. You can go to that first ancillary network slide if you don't mind there, Nate. Yeah, so I mean, working with Vault and Satoxi, and in and around some of the core network spaces, obviously, these are the types of services that we've been providing on the regular routine tip-offs. The things I'd like to foot stomp here are really the intelligence reporting is probably one of the biggest game changers. Contextualized intelligence against top tier adversaries, and I'm talking. The guys with formerly with Conti that are moving on in their daily lives as adults trying to make income in their 30s and 40s, right? These are experienced hackers, and they're leading a lot of the top tier adversaries that we see dominating the media cycle today with things like supply chain attack, et cetera, right? These are Quantum, Royal, Black Basta, Karakurt. Our reporting on these adversaries and their approaches we've already seen and shown, and you guys have been receiving some of this reporting in Q1, has the ability to not only prevent, not just mitigate, but prevent in some cases, full-blown exploitation campaigns by informing, potential victims of their targeting and the techniques they're being targeted with ahead of time, right? If we're able to get that to the streets, and we partner with DHS and law enforcement across a myriad of points and facets, right? Doing the right thing to inform victims and protect things that are within those 16 pillars of critical infrastructure for the US, at least. I think that approach is what we're seeing evidence of success of in top tier tech industries and verticals targeted by some of these same actors, right? So the contextualized intelligence is a huge access for us and huge value proposition that hopefully I think ensures you guys moving forward of potential targeting and how advanced adversaries are going to target you, right? Because it will happen. The net flow monitoring is another piece to foot stomp. This is due diligence, right? Electrons on the wire don't lie. So by watching IP space around your ancillary network, we're able to identify things, sometimes some scary things, like we tipped off a few Cobalt Strike indications this last quarter. Those things I know were triaged and hopefully, benign downstream is, ruled out for good purposes and reasons. Adversary scan, probe, and exploit campaigns are always going after verticals just like yours that are non-standard in sort of their network profiles, if you will, right? Also, I think the net flow monitoring has been particularly useful in keeping track of some of the one-offs that are unique to not just QRL, but some of your guys' decentralized network spaces too, right? The port 3333 traffic at Vault, for instance, I was like, boom, holy smokes, what is this? Well, I get it now. But being able to understand some of those things and then cancel out the known good, we're able to identify and flag things like vulnerable Apache instances that need to be patched before they get popped with some sort of proxy malware or something worse, right? Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the IP reuse because I have a slide next about the core network, right? Tying all these things together, my question is, who's monitoring the core network moving forward, right? Because while I'd love for it to be us, I mean, the singular recommendation I want you guys to walk away with is it needs to be done in tandem, right? Is my recommendation as a practitioner. I think that plays for a couple of really key reasons here. I'm going to foot stomp some of the adversarial targeting of the crypto vertical. On the left here, you see a bunch of active campaigns that are always going after companies like QRC, QRL, right? So you need to have a higher awareness of this, number one. But the defense is really some of the things we're already doing on the ancillary side of things. A couple of key risks, like I don't know if you guys have been keeping track of the North Korean 3CX supply chain attack campaign. That's the type of advanced nation state adversary, and it's North Korea, so it's sort of tongue in cheek to say advanced, right? But their cyber capabilities are actually pretty decent. But they targeted crypto, right? They went after crypto victims via a 3CX supply chain attack that updated firmware for these customers' soft phone applications, right? Having awareness of this, of these types of techniques and attacks, and then doing the diligence to monitor all the things coming in, canceling out the bad, blocking out the bad, right? Accepting the good, if you will. there's a lot of recommendations moving forward that we think we'd like to make and work with you guys as we partner and move forward potentially. One of those things is definitely infrastructure reuse, right? In the core network, some of the ancillary network also, but the core network in particular, there's some business risk here, I think, guys. Testnet 3 is running on a vulnerable Vulture Holdings server. It's it's at least a dozen CVEs open on it, for a couple for port 80. We see things like where the QRL.org is hosted, one of the IPs is a FreeCast IP also, right? So FreeCast does a ton of ads, but when your device IP gets the reputation inherited to that FreeCast traffic, you start to see things like you are here, where you start to get AV companies flagging your IP address and related services as potentially malicious, right? These are things that I think, we're not like critical, like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling type security risks, but understanding some of these risks and adapting, a right custom fit intelligence and monitoring solutions suite on top of it, I think is the way that I would recommend you guys move forward with partnering and securing QRC and QRL moving forward. So any questions on the security side of stuff before Mike starts going here?
Oh, I'm going to go. No, it's we'll get you a good section on that. Like we said, it's some of the stuff's just informational, but it is interesting how when you start investigating the internet at a packet metadata level, how many of these things actually tie together, like the people reusing infrastructure or otherwise tainting reputations on things. And then that filters upstream. Like if you have, for example, somebody is blocking based on those reputation risks, there's nothing wrong with QRL. There's nothing wrong with the QRC website. And yet that IP has been in a bad database for long enough to get flagged. So like we said, nothing where the sky is falling, but interesting things we see as we've started to investigate and explore around the network. Additionally to that, this really comes back to the piece for me. So I think I didn't do an introduction up front, and that's intentional. I'm going to kind of give you one now. I think most of you know who I am. So I'm Mike Ziegler, 45A from Discord, and I am the guy running the QRC effort. You now kind of heard a little bit about 2 of the 3 divisions that I've kind of spun up here to help us build and accelerate the QRL message, get that message out to diverse audiences, identify who those audiences are, and try and target them. There was supposed to be one other group that was going to speak today, but unfortunately they had a little bit of a emergency, which is the guys we have doing infrastructure. So you'll have to wait for our next presentation to meet them. Now let's talk about how all this comes together to actually provide tangible forward-facing value to QRL and what the future is going to look like for us. So we are in a bit of a bear market. Even though that bear market is starting to finally show some signs of recovery, we have massive regulatory risk. We have massive political risk. We have all kinds of just really crazy things kind of coming down on high that are inhibiting a lot of the ability to compete that we would like to exploit inside the blockchain ecosystem. Fortunately for us, we are looking really good on all of this. During the slow period, I have started building out the different elements of this program for the reason of each one adding a unique value prospectus and a unique and new message that is inherently not anywhere in the crypto ecosystem that we can take forward. I know a lot of us have had the experience of talking to somebody like a Bitcoin maximalist who just doesn't want to hear anything about quantum computing. In fact, I've spoken to an Ethereum core developer who basically said, well, by the time that's a problem, I'm going to have sold everything that I own and be living on an island in the Pacific anyway. So there's a lot of desire to just push this under the rug, pretend it's not happening, and continue to double down on bad decisions that are extremely profitable for these organizations at present. What we're doing in the form of the security program and in the form of the market research is trying to put QRL out there vis-a-vis the lens of QRC as the most risk-aware product on the market. We are not wholly focused on just fixing this really unpopular problem of fixing quantum resistance. We are not just focused on reaching the audience of crypto maximalists who can interact with these more complex networks and tokens. We are focused on the overall concept of risk, and risk is something that plays in the financial community. As we move forward, you're going to see a lot of new things from us. We've already begun the initial steps of setting up our content distribution pipeline, which will finalize around the same time that the research work Nate and Catherine have been working on for messaging is finalized. That's going to allow us to carry forward these messages, these audience groups into a consistent, ongoing, targeted series of campaigns. Right now, we're starting with some kind of tried and true stuff while we formulate the rest of the plan around exactly where we need to go to reach those audiences. Some examples are, we've cut a deal with Benzinga where we will be getting one piece of content on their website every week for kind of the next 3 months as a tester campaign to get some of these messages out in public and see how they work with what is primarily a crypto-aware investing audience. I also intend to approach things like Bloomberg, the Wall Street Journal. We actually have advertised with Wall Street Journal successfully in the past, but I want to do a much more comprehensive campaign there. I really want to target some of the crypto-specific media. That one has to kind of come alongside the really important work that's happening right now in QRL, which is the release of the Zond testnet, where we can show that we are still here. We are still fighting. We are still, much more importantly than any of those things, actually innovating new and original software that does things that nobody else has ever done before. We have started all of our kind of social strategy stuff right now. Right now, we have a LinkedIn account, and this is kind of my big focus. If you look at audiences like the Twitter audience, or even the Facebook audience to a lesser extent, they're very low quality groups. Same with Reddit, for that matter. Reddit's the least high quality group. It's predominantly bots. It's predominantly shilling and autonomous delivery programs. LinkedIn, on the other hand, is none of those things. LinkedIn is a professional and verifiable network of professionals whereby you can really target people where they live based on their job roles, based on the activities that they're following. There is actually a fairly decent set of crypto movements on LinkedIn that we're really going to start pushing these articles and releases out to. Now, another thing that has happened here as of last night, the date of this recording is the 13th. Nate and I met with a representative from MEXC, which is the MEXC exchange. We went over kind of his offering in person. This person has already passed the first stage of our identity validation process, and it is my intent once we have muted my mic. It is my intent once we have fully audited their contract to move on a listing and volume support service on MECX. While we're fixing the messaging and fundamentals of visibility, education, and accessibility of the network, we also have to focus on the health of the network as a whole. And while the movement and usage of the Quanta token isn't inherently linked to that, it is a kind of a good barometer to show how many people are really participating in the network that we do. So we really are looking to kind of move on that some more. As we move forward, I'm hoping to get the security program more involved. I want to start being able to onboard some of our whales and other high-risk individuals who are participating in creation of content for QRL. We will continue to watch the metadata of all of the core network devices as we already have, and anything else that comes up there, so that if anything truly critical, less interesting and more critical pops up, we'll be on it early. And we're going to market around that too. The most recent press release we did was the one where RedSense, at RedSense's expense, endorsed QRL. And that press release, when posted on LinkedIn, when pushed to some of the security groups there, has done extremely well. I think our research will back this up as we move through that messaging process, that is really the core audience that we need to reach. People who are aware of these risks, people who are technically sophisticated, and of course, people where that audience is of the highest quality. That said, look forward to a lot more on social from us as well. We are currently getting the website for QRC up and running. A big piece of that is the ability to distribute and comment on content. For example, about every single day in the Discord, somebody's linking a really interesting news story about how quantum computing is moving, how the broader industry vertical outside of us is progressing. So we're going to start indexing that content and providing a space where we can get commentary posted on it, where we can work to utilize it for our own SEO and attribution purposes. It should be pretty cool. In addition, like Nate said, we have been working on the ambassador box. That has been an interesting process to get some actual physical stuff together, which will, for the first time ever, be something that you can pay for directly with Quanta. Now, you'll notice I did this meeting as a live event, not a pre-recorded, professionally polished, video design for a media release. And the reason I did that is I wanted to make sure that we were projecting the truth here, which is that we were a group of very approachable people. You see in here not just people from QRC and QRL, you see in here people from the Discord community, people who have been working, talking, messaging their friends, doing things to help promote this token and this project all along. And I want to make sure that everybody watching this and listening to this knows that you can approach us with anything. No idea is too crazy, no scheme too harebrained. We want to evaluate it all. We want to find the best winners and try to enable our community and the people therein to make successful post-quantum products and successful post-quantum projects. Last thing I'll talk about is the legal work. This has been an ongoing process for us since the beginning. I mentioned at the front that we actually finally got our all clear from the lawyers. I'll have the formal release here pretty soon, but they told me that is their conclusion. They're just writing it up in legal use for us. They really did go through a lot of work on us, and their expectation, I think, when we initially started talking was that we were actually going to have a problem, that they were going to find through their discovery process that we had tripped over some law, that we had made some mistake, that there was some reason for concern, and they were elated to really find out that there wasn't. So I think the biggest thing I want to announce today is just that cloud is at least partially gone from over our heads. That said, the last thing for QRL before we'll go ahead and kind of close out the meeting with the Q&A session, regulatory landscape. It is unrealistic to believe that Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, these financial activities or financial adjacent activities will not be regulated in some way, shape, or form. A big reason that we went forward with actually accomplishing formal legal work on this is now we can speak to the fact that we, QRL, are trying to be an active and professional participant in whatever market that ends up emerging from all of the bickering and back and forth of the SEC and the CFTC and the various international bodies that are all trying to kind of put their hand in the pie. It is my intent to make sure that we use some of the political connections that we have available to, not do shady things like some of the exchange holders that we could talk about where they were basically paying off, government officials, but instead make sure that we're available to get to things like meetings on the how of regulation of crypto, the what of crypto regulation, to ensure that QRL gets its seat at the table during the conversations that will affect the future of all cryptocurrency. So, of course, any questions you have for me, if anyone wants to throw a hand up, we can move on to those now.
Yes, hi, my name's Tim. I don't do these meetings often, so if I fumble around, I'm sorry for that.
No worries.
I have a question. Let's see if I can start the video so you can see me here. Okay, all right, there I am.
How you doing?
I have a question. Was anybody from the core team, QRL core team, invited to this meeting?
We put the meeting notice out there publicly about 6 weeks ago. I spoke to Strike, told him he was welcome to come when we originally had planned this. And of course, Peter from the core team is here.
Okay, and I have a little bit of feedback. It's not necessarily asking for anything regarding it. I just some thoughts that I had. I'm having trouble understanding RedSense's involvement and what they might get out of being part of the QRC and what exactly that relationship is. And I think it has to do with my lack of understanding of the technical stuff. And then also at a higher level, I'm also wondering how some of the groups that are involved with QRL, obviously the QRC. I know you mentioned Zatoxy and Geometry Labs, RedSense. How they will all interact publicly. That's going to be interesting for me to see. And I think that's all I have. Just some feedback.
Those are really good questions. Let me kind of go down the list. So the core of the RedSense involvement, RedSense is an organization with a lot of resources and a pretty reasonable brand reputation. We've got about 25 people, including access to things like the DoD Skill Bridge program, where we're bringing people out of Cyber Command and placing them directly in RedSense. And my goal with that was to enable us to factually say that we are targeting risk. And risk comes in more forms than just the quantum side of this. Like I said at the top, we see a lot of these hacks of these different ecosystems, and most of them, we have actually seen an attack on our blockchain, the really interesting mining attack from a while back. That's not so much our focus. Our focus is the servers, the people involved with the servers, the infrastructure and how it communicates. And for example, Pony, which is a group we're targeting in particular, who go after crypto as a whole, how they've been trying to kind of scan, break into the perimeter, target these weak systems, and otherwise gain a foothold to do things like big crypto heists. We've seen what that does. Fortunately, our hack on our blockchain was incredibly minimally impactful because the guy who did it, he didn't immediately go and dump all the liquidity on all the exchanges. All the transactions were caught. It was really obvious from a Block Explorer perspective when that happened. But we can look at some of the things like the hacks on the Solana network or the hack of Axie Infinity as to what people gaining access to these servers and systems actually looks like for a project, which is damning to say the least. So what RedSense does is it's the same thing we do for big companies. From an external perspective, meaning that we don't have keys to log into these servers, we're not deploying endpoint agents on these servers, we're not gaining any additional access to people's operations beyond what is publicly available in the form of metadata. We correlate that information with our threat indexes, like the things where we're using to track groups like PonyLoader, and then we look for network sessions going into not just the QRL core, but any of the networks associated with QRL. At the end of the day, this is a question I had answered for somebody previously. It doesn't matter when something that is related to QRL gets hacked, if it's a core network infrastructure element or if it's a side project. If the headline is going to be QRL system hacked, QRL related hack happens, QRL whatever, and people don't like reading beyond the headlines. I'm sure the details will be there, but not in a really upfront way. As far as how these different groups come together, this is where distributed ecosystems get interesting, and this is actually one of the big points of why our handling of risk needs to be done the way that it is. And that is to say that when you look at a distributed ecosystem, you have a bunch of servers, groups, systems, and networks that make up an economy that nobody has any real conception of how they're controlled, how they're secured, how they're built, who's going through what audits and processes with them. It's basically throw your thing up and see if it works. And we love that. That's absolutely what blockchain was always about, is just make something cool. What QRL gets from RedSense around that is making sure that somebody is actually watching for the low-hanging fruits, the unpatched Apache servers, the Cobalt Strike beaconing off of a system, the things that are unlikely to be detected by your typical antivirus client, that are unlikely to be preventable by security outside of keeping your patches and things like that up to date, or in the case of interesting zero-day exploits coming out of a group like say Pony, noticing those sessions, being able to correlate those sessions with the back-end infrastructure they're talking to. So I hope that clarifies.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep. Who's next? Oh, and by the way, another big part of the RedSense thing is we have a lot of credibility, and using that credibility to help boost the QRL social brand is already showing some solid benefits. No other hands? Well, cool. If everybody's happy, like I said, we'll go ahead and make this meeting. Oh, I see a hand. There we go. Liz.
Yeah, I have one. Give me some screen. Wait a minute. So, hi everybody. I'm the one of the owners from Frontline. I have one question. I hear you a lot talking about the marketing and stuff. Our interesting is more in the technology behind the QRL and also the development around it. So yeah, I'm actually interested in how can new technology developments can improve your marketing strategy and attract more people to it.
Cool. So really good question there too. I think that's one of the overall hard things of the blockchain ecosystem right now is it's not really accessible. And when Catherine and Nate kind of gave their background from the marketing perspective coming in here trying to learn that, I think that really popped out. It's like getting into this, understanding, let's say something simple like Bitcoin or Ethereum by itself, that's pretty damn hard. However, in the case of things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, these early movers, they also have a lot of infrastructure around them that simplifies out the transaction process. There was a time when if you wanted to buy an Ethereum, you had to first buy Bitcoin and then find somebody on a forum to talk to and then transact that to Ethereum. And it's kind of the place that we are now. I believe that there are kind of two elements that are going to increase the usability of the network with us. Number one is attracting solid market participants, people like Voltmine, people like Zatoxy, that are building interesting things related to QRL or trying to develop things in the space that it can increase that access. The second is as volume on the network grows, as activity on the network grows, I think we're going to be able to attract some of those legacy players that will make the interactions between these systems a little bit easier with their existing tech. When it comes to our systems themselves, the things that currently make up QRL, our backend, services like our wallet service, our Explorer, the mining pools, these things all could benefit from a what we call a UI UX overhaul. This is where we bring in somebody whose job it is to professionally sit down, sit in front of an application that they don't know anything about, learn to use that application, and then using a set of kind of scientific methodologies, take that information and translate it into a set of quantifiable recommendations for how do we make this easier? How do we make it more apparent to anybody that might be using it? I have a friend of mine who works in medical devices for UI UX. The whole thing in medical devices is you're looking at stuff where the user base, which is medical professionals and whoever the device gets strapped to, are not necessarily technically adept. And his whole job is figuring out how to make like a pulse ox monitor so straightforward that not only can every doctor and nurse use it, but so can somebody who has never even heard of a pulse ox monitor when they need to do it in real time. So I think that's part of the natural evolution here. And I think it's probably something that'll be worth dedicating some resources and cycles to iterating upon as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you. I just mute myself. My hamster started to run in this wheel, so it was a bit noisy. Yeah, thank you for your explanation. Yeah, for me, I agreed. I think it's necessary. That's easy for all people's so they know. Yeah, I'm sorry, my English is not as good as yours. I'm a bit nervous, but yeah, I think it's important to have a good UI. So the level must be low so people can join.
And honestly, it's one of the hardest things about engineering software, actually making it easy. It's easy to make a script that does anything you want if nobody ever touches it or has to interact with or provide it feedback. That UI UX thing is not just a challenge for us, it's a challenge for all software. Unfortunately, there are some good professional standards that we can execute on to get to a level of performance that, you know, is an improvement. I think it's something that we could manage even at a community level, maybe create some styling guidelines or some UI UX guidelines or something like that other people, you know, they don't have to implement. It's free world out there. It's an open distributed project, but they can use if they choose to.
And our our audience personas that we come up with, you know, sort of our most targeted audiences that are our most worthwhile targeted audiences, you know, that will also inform that UI UX, you know, because then we'll be designing that user experience for those specific personas. So it all kind of does tie together. And Liz, I think, you know, you had mentioned just, you know, new technologies and how that informs like our marketing. You know, I think, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what you were asking, but, you know, I think between Catherine, Mike, and I, you know, just staying agile with all the news that's coming out constantly, and adapting that into our strategy, and just harnessing it, because all the news that keeps coming out seems to be benefiting our angle. or our stance, our strategy. Dr. Ian posted a nature.com scientific journal that we're looking at. We're gonna use that, and just because it just supports everything that we're talking about. And it's people are starting to talk about these the vulnerabilities within blockchains with post-quantum, in the post-quantum world. So we're just going to harness that and just stay agile.
Now really is the time to establish expertise, to get us out there as the people that you want to call when there is a question about this, to start building, because right now we're doing a lot of what is paid media and development. We're building something that gets us into a position to be seen by journalists, investors, the investing public, cryptocurrency enthusiasts, etc. The next stage to that, the thing that we hope to build towards this year, is what's called earned media. Earned media is where we're not paying somebody to listen to it. It's where they are coming to us to ask us the questions about these topics that we have demonstrated the expertise to answer. And that's not an easy thing to attain. We've been able to attain some of it for some of our other operations in the past, but that is the goal we're working towards. It's one thing to pay to tell somebody a story. It's another thing entirely when they're coming to you asking about it.
Yeah, it's essentially free advertising, free publicity. And when you do look at all the news that's coming out, it's kind of, and I'm sure the community can relate, you're sort of screaming like, what about QRL? Like, hello, still not enough people just know about it. But the conversations that people are having around quantum computing and blockchain is like, why aren't you talking about it? So we're just in the, I think, perfect time to just really hit this hard and try to become that voice that people listen to.
Great. Anybody else? Okay, I'm not seeing any new hands. So we'll go ahead and call it there. Like I said, I will record this and get it distributed to various channels. This meeting will be open to the public. And of course, anybody who's listening to my voice after the fact of this recording, if you need to know anything, feel free to reach out to any of us. We're always here to answer your questions. And ideally, come up with some cool ideas and ways to move things forward. Very happy to meet with all of you. Great meeting, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys.